Hey, Steve.
Hey, Alan.
Welcome back to Pop Century Room 9437, where 2 years ago, on approximately this date, we recorded a podcast episode about youth group travel.
It's good to be back.
Appreciate your help. I think we're having a good time with the group that we're here with today. Thought it'd be fun to revisit some thoughts on student group travel. You up for it?
I'm up for it. I don't know how many thoughts I have. Hopefully you have a few.
I have some thoughts, and one of the things is this. I've been traveling with students to Disney World for almost 30 years. Next year, no, this is the year, 30 years of student travel, Disney World, mostly as a band director and then as a tour operator, but I've gone full circle on thinking there was like a right way to do it, to, every group's a little different and they should have full latitude on kind of owning their trip, and back to me offering some pretty strong recommendations and some things that work well. So, would you like to hear some things that I think work well?
Yeah, what are the non-negotiables for you?
Oh, non-negotiables. I don't know if I'm strong enough to call them non-negotiables yet. But it's pretty close. I think that staff need to really own a trip. And I see a lot of staff do this. This is best practices I've seen, and I'm not like bemoaning the fact that nobody does this. But the groups that seem to have the best trip, the staff really own most of the communication, most of the hype, and most of the leadership. Their travel planner, tour operators is there to support that. But the other thing that they do well in advance is carefully select chaperones, or even if they're not carefully selected, make sure that those chaperones are really, really clear in the expectations for things. And then that helps the students be clear on their expectations.
Yeah, and I'm always trying to think of ways to make our topics or our guests apply to the entirety of our audience. And so the first thing I'm thinking is even just taking my students on a school bus across town for a field trip, the importance of, first of all, making sure the students know that I believe in what we're doing and why it's important, and I am their main person that they're going to trust with all of this. And then, to your point too, if I have chaperones coming along, whether it's parents or other teachers in the building, making sure that they're all very clear on this too. So I think in general, this is probably a good idea anytime we leave our music classroom for any reason with our students. And I bet our elementary general music listeners are already thinking, yes, if we go down to the gym to practice for our program, I'm already talking about some of these very things. Or if I have parent helpers with that, I'm making sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I appreciate the push to keep things like general and applicable, because I'm probably going to get a little on the specific side here. I think this applies to so many things in the classroom. Make the expectations very, very clear and set the boundaries very clearly, so that then there can be an awful lot of freedom in and owning your own experience in whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's good for whatever topic you're teaching.
Let me be very specific about taking kids to Disney World, staying at a Disney resort, and maybe you can help make this a little bit more general. If chaperones get to know their students, trade contact information with them, and make sure that they're out the door in the morning to go enjoy the theme park, if it's a free day where they just get to go to the theme parks or whatever, then they don't all have to leave at the exact same time. But they have to leave after a certain time. Like, we don't want them leaving before, say, 6:30 a.m., but we also don't want them leaving late, like 9 a.m. So you establish some boundaries. Anytime between X time and Y time, go ahead and leave. Make sure your chaperone sees you and knows about it. And the other part of that I think is brilliant is, at the end of the day, let's say you want to go to a theme park that closes at 7 because you're tired or your group is tired and you want to come back to the hotel and maybe take a quick swim afterwards. If your chaperone says that's okay, you communicate with your chaperone, that's fine. Nice early night. If you want to stay to the Magic Kingdom till midnight because it closes then and your chaperone buys into that, then everybody can own their own trip. But the staff has to say, here's the latest possible time, here's the earliest possible time, and then it's free within that. And if that expectation gets made clear well in advance, things go well.
One thing I was impressed with regarding the group we're here with now, so I was on the flight down with the students and the chaperones, and even before the flight took off, so everybody basically met at the airport, and before the flight took off, I heard some of the chaperones behind me talking about how they were already texting with their groups, and I was struck by the fact that the trip really hadn't started yet, but there was clearly that relationship already established where the chaperones knew exactly which students they were responsible for, and the students knew which adults they could go to for questions right away, which that kind of struck me, that good thing to take care of before, that they've all met one another and communicated with one another, so it wasn't too many new things happening all at the same time.
Yeah, that advance work is, I think that's key. And I think it's a non-negotiable. I think I would have a hard time doing what I do and how I do it. I get pretty close with my groups, and I don't have very many each year, so I try to provide kind of a boutique personalized service. But if those chaperones haven't gotten those expectations in advance and understand that what their role is, it can be tough. I think another non-negotiable that leads into that is staff need to work with their tour operator to be organized maybe earlier than is comfortable.
Yeah.
So something that I do, and this seems like a real stretch, but it works really well, is I require the room lists for a spring break trip, a trip that's in March, to be more or less complete by December 10th. I turn them in on December 10th. Now, they're changeable, but we don't make changes super easy. We make sure there's a really good reason for those. But then that allows those staff members to start to picture, okay, here's the adults, here's the students, who should we pair up? And then they think about those things a couple of months in advance, and then that allows some of that advance planning, texting, like you were talking about, like you witnessed at the airport.
Yeah, and if you've got a parent who maybe is a teacher, and you have one room that might require just a little bit more tender loving care and patience, that you might go ahead and give that to someone who's very experienced with students that age and understanding things, not taking things personally. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Something else that seems to be a truism, and I wouldn't call this a non-negotiable, but I call it an inevitability of life, is that something will go wrong. I don't know any group trip where things have gone perfectly and there hasn't been a certain amount of, oh, well, that wasn't supposed to happen that way. We were supposed to do that a little earlier. That bus was supposed to show up at this time or this place, and there was a delay, or, oh my gosh, the weather messed up this really important plan of ours. I think group travel is a great opportunity for students to learn about life, and that's something we've talked about in previous podcast episodes about this. So I don't want to go into too much more detail about that. But I just really have noticed, especially post COVID, that sometimes these moments, if the students are prepared by the adults to realize that sometimes things don't go perfectly, and to roll with the punches, be patient and gracious. That goes okay, and that's a better life skill. And if the adults also get worked up about things like that, even when there's no ability to control it, then that can reflect with the students as well. And I think that that's another important group travel lesson that I think it's important that's another group travel lesson that's valuable when it's handled in the right way.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn how to deal with life's uncertainties. And I think oftentimes the you have some of that in a school and in a classroom, but generally far less of it, because we know that today we're going to teach this, and the students are likely going to have trouble with that, and the bell is going to ring at this time, and then they will leave. And the unexpected things that pop up tend to not happen between 8 and 3 when we're at school. But they're, like you said, we should just plan on it when we're outside of school. And I think the students watching the directors, the chaperones, handle it well, prepares them. And I was even thinking about that this morning when we were in line waiting to get in for the early entry at one of the parks, and there was a family in front of us, and his dad was so mad at how slow our particular line happened to be going. And he was pretty upset about it, and he couldn't believe how slow our line was going compared to the line next to him. And I just kept thinking to myself, there was a very quiet, I would say maybe 11-year-old boy with them in that family. And I was thinking, this kid is going to be just like that when he has a family. And the modeling is just so important.
Yeah. I this won't surprise you. I almost said something. I almost said, "Hey man, the moment," because he talked about switching lines, right? Like he was going to go. That would be crazy. But he was like really dead set on, or it seemed like he was dead set on switching lines, and I almost leaned forward to say, man, the moment you change lines, all of a sudden that one's going to go slow. Because what happens is you just get somebody who doesn't know what they're doing or something with a little problem at the entry point, and then it takes a moment to solve it. That's going to happen on all the lines, but it just happened on ours, and he was, oh man.
It's also going to happen not at Disney World. It's going to happen in the grocery store. It's going to happen lots of places.
It's going to happen in traffic. It's going to happen all the time. And I don't know if this is too loose of a connection, but it does remind me of one of the things that we've talked about on this podcast is how sometimes in our music classrooms, perfectionism is something that can be damaging rather than helpful. And holding perfectionism for an experience can also be damaging, to think, oh, it's going to happen exactly like this, and that we'll get up at this time, we'll do this at this time. And if we're all together, if you're together with people you're in community with, whether things are going well or things are going not as expected, you're still in community with them, and you're still having a bonding experience with people, which is what these trips are supposed to be.
Yeah. I just wake up every day with a super low bar. If the day comes to a close and I'm doing my crossword puzzle in bed and pretty much my family is still healthy and my house didn't burn down, like, you know what? That was a pretty good day.
Yeah, that's a win.
To a lot of, and if some other good stuff happened to happen along the way, then it was a great day.
Mm-hmm. Something we talked about 2 years ago in this room was how expensive it's getting to do group travel. Talk about some of the rationale or the reasons behind that. Just the growth of prices faster than the rate of inflation in some of the pockets of what constitutes the components of a group trip. And I even said then, I'm like, I don't know. You asked me if it was worth it. You asked me point blank if it was worth it, if it was a good deal. And I said, I'm not sure that it is necessarily. But I think I said then, and I'll say it again now, people don't usually regret the money that they have spent on some travel. And I'm feeling more and more strongly about that in the last couple of years since we recorded that episode. I really do see groups having such a good time with each other, making some new memories, having these experiences, getting closer to the people that they're around, that especially when things are handled well and they're very organized, where you've got tons of boundaries and expectations along with an awful lot of freedom within that, that people tend to have a good enough time that these $2,000 trips, and that's what they're running about these days. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but they do tend to be worth it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that too is just it becomes easier and easier to be angry at people in the comments section of an article or online, that more than ever just getting out of your bubble. And even if you are sort of taking the people in your bubble with you to a different bubble, but along the way you just see some different scenery, I think it really goes a long way to helping sort of de-escalate or those initial reactions we have of wanting to get angry when that other person cuts us off in traffic, that we know that they're just human beings everywhere. Everyone's trying their best. You ride the Skyliner back from the park with someone from a different part of the country who might look at things a little bit differently than you. And it's really pretty hard to hate that person after you have spent 30 or 60 seconds with them versus when they're this sort of imaginary other or enemy. And so I think it is doing much good just for our country and for the youth of the country to be forced into these situations and to be put into some different scenarios so we don't become so isolationist. And I've also noticed, I was fortunate to go on a trip overseas with a combined group of directors and students from many different schools. And I especially noticed this on that trip, and I'm noticing it to some degree on the trip we're on now. And that is, even if you think you know your coworker or you know your colleagues from some different schools, nothing really like traveling with them and seeing them on the plane or on the bus or first thing in the morning or at the end of the day when you're really sweaty and haven't had a shower, and when you're solving these problems together. And for me to watch on that overseas trip all of these different teachers, just how their relationships had changed by the end of even just that week because they got to know each other a little bit better. And I'm including even people from the same school on that. So that's something that kind of hit me really in the last year, that it's good for the students, but I also think that it's good for the grown-ups in that regard as well.
Yeah, there's, whether we're talking about kids or grown-ups, there is something about seeing each other. This doesn't apply to our current group because they flew, but seeing each other and how you handle an 18 to 30 hour bus trip, and how you navigate shared space. Random thought, but talking about navigating shared space, just having roommates is a growth opportunity for students. I've noticed this when I've done some parent orientations leading into trips lately, is we talk about how when we were kids, those of us who are in our 40s...
Wait, this isn't where you're going to tell me I have to give up my room tonight and come sleep in your room, is it?
Oh, dear Lord, no.
Okay.
No.
So we don't believe that strongly in shared spaces.
We haven't believed in that. But because we've done it, because that's where I'm headed,
yes.
is that a lot of people our age went to camp and had slumber parties and sleepovers to a much greater extent than young people today for variety of reasons. And so a lot of parents underestimate how hard or challenging or anxiety producing it is to throw 4 people into a hotel room, which we didn't think anything about 40 years ago when we did that as kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's another learning experience, but also something to think about a little bit ahead. Another thing I love about all of this is letting kids loose at Disney World. Just let your chaperone know where you are. They learn how to use public transportation and how to navigate it on their own. They learn how to manage money and handle that on their own. And that's one of the most common topics at orientation meetings in advance of a trip is, how do I spend money? And that's a very good question. So I want to talk about 2 other things that can come up, especially for adults and maybe staff people, so our listeners, when it comes to some of these student trips that cost a lot of money. The parents and students can sometimes start to appear a little entitled with a lot of the questions they're asking and a lot of the exceptions that they want and a lot of variations, and can we come down with our kid but leave a day early and pay less for a hotel room, or just a lot of customizations. And that's not as possible in group travel as it is with an Amazon Prime order or with a Starbucks order. And so I caution staff who get impatient with that stuff by saying this is a very normal thing right now. People are very used to being able to customize a lot of things that they do. And so when they think that they can do that with these group trips, they're wrong, but we shouldn't be too judgy about it. Because the other thing that's true, if we start to say, oh, people are acting very entitled about this, well, they are entitled. They're entitled to a great trip because they're paying an awful lot of money for it. And so if somebody starts to get a little, act a little what we might call entitled, I think that requires a lot of patience and to just like go with the flow, answer their questions, yes or no, provide a rationale if needed, but to really relax about that. And the other thing that I've seen staff people and maybe some parents, very active parents, get annoyed by is when people ask questions closer to the trip about things that they were told. Things that were put in the trip handbook or things that were covered at orientation or things that they should just know. And the reminder that I like to offer is, this is brain research, man. Like when we hear information, but it isn't immediately relevant, we flush it. We don't necessarily retain it.
And that's probably old brain research. That was true even 20 years ago, and that is more true today with our attention spans and the smartphones.
Yeah.
That goes for the grown-ups too.
Oh, yes, it does. So, sorry, I didn't mean to sound impatient in my tone of voice there. I don't want to be a hypocrite here, but yeah, so you have to answer maybe 15 to 20 times. How big of a suitcase can we bring again? What hotel are we staying at again?
And wouldn't you rather they ask one last time how big a suitcase they can bring as opposed to just bringing the one that's too big?
Yeah.
And then dealing with it? Do we need our passport?
Yeah.
No, but you do need a government-issued ID. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd much rather they just ask.
Yeah.
The entitlement thing, I think that extends to all the listeners here, especially those of you who are teaching elective music classes that students or parents are opting into. And if they act entitled, I kind of feel like they should. If they're not spending money on an instrument or lessons, which a lot of them probably are, but let's say they're not, they are spending time and making a decision to take your class instead of another class. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that does entitle them to act a certain way. They are doing us a favor. If they didn't sign up for our classes, we'd be out of a job. I think it is okay to recognize that, we're providing a great experience for them educationally, culturally, artistically, but also we are lucky they are with us. Yeah. We're lucky they chose to invest time or money with us and in our program.
We may not have followed a straight line from beginning to end here, but I think we've covered some of the things that have occurred to me here in the last couple of days as we've been down here, and wanted to follow up on what we did in this room 2 years ago. Is there anything else we've talked about in the last couple of days do you think would be worth bringing up to our listeners?
No, I want to go ride Tower of Terror.
We are on track to go ride Tower of Terror, so let's put a pin in this and thank our listeners for putting up with some stream of consciousness as we share some thoughts related to the trip that we're on right now and group travel in general and music education very generally. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at shanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. wintersetwebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's on musicedinsights.com.
You can expect a new episode most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.